All right. So let's see. So for our warm-up, lines parallel to BF. So in the chat, what's at least one line that's parallel to BF that you found? There should be two total. If you think you got one, type it in the chat. All right. Yep, those are the ones. We got CE and AD, both of those. So CE is this top one here, AD is this one back here. Those are both parallel to BF. They're all going in the same direction. They have the same slope. They're never touching. Okay, so those are our two lines. How about lines that are skew to BF? There should be two. What do we think? All right, Sunita's got one of them. DE is correct. What's the other one? There we go, Lauren, CA. Yes, DE and CA, those lines are skewed to BF because they're not going in that same direction as BF. They don't have the same slope, but it's also neither of those lines ever touch line BF. All right, how about lines intersecting line BF? One's a little easier. There should be 4 of them. All right, BA is one of them. What's another? BC, there we go. There's 2 of them, both of the ones that touch at point B. All right, how about the ones that touch at point F? There we go, nice, Mallory. FD. And then one more. FE, nice, Ashton. Yes, those are the 4. FD, FE, BC, and BA. Those are all the ones that intersect with BF. All right, last one, a plane parallel to plane DEF. That's that back triangle here. Let's see, close, Owen. ACD is that back face there that touches it. All right, yes, Mallory and Lauren, you guys got it. ABC, ACB, whatever you want to call this triangular face right here. No worries, I thought it might have been a typo there. Yeah, so ABC, any combination of these 3 letters here will work because that back triangle is parallel to the front triangle. Okay, so there we go. That was kind of a review of what we did yesterday at the beginning of class with figuring out if lines are parallel, intersecting, or skew, and then identifying planes when they're parallel as well. Okay, so today we're kind of expanding off of what we did in the second half of class yesterday, which was parallel lines with transversals and those angle relationships that are created there. So that's what we're doing today, angle relationships with parallel lines and transversals. So by the end of class today, we want to be able to use angle relationships formed by parallel lines and transversals to find missing angles. And then kind of the same one from yesterday, we will also be able to name angle pairs that are formed by those lines and transversals because it helps if we can name the angles because then we have to use those angle relationships. So if we can't do this one, then this one's really hard. We want to make sure we solidify this from yesterday. Okay, so grab whatever you're using to take notes and let's get going. Shadow and find a pen. And move this. Okay. So 3.2 angle relationships with parallel lines and transversals. Angle relationships with parallel lines and transversals. Okay, so Yesterday we talked about some different angle relationships. We had alternate interior, we had alternate exterior, we had consecutive interior, and we had corresponding. Angles. So those were the names of all the angle relationships. And those angle relationships do something special when the lines are parallel. So if you're using lines and a transversal, when these two lines are parallel to each other, there's some special relationships that exist, some nice, convenient things that happen with all of these angle relationships. Okay. So the convenient things that happen are that alternate interior angles are equal to each other. Or congruent. Same thing with alternate exterior angles. So that's the first relationship that we have. So alternate interior angles are equal. So that tells me if this is one of my interior angles, its alternate interior angle is right over here, and those angles would be congruent. So I'm going to name my angles really quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that would tell me that angle 1 and angle 5 are congruent. But that's only the case when these lines are parallel to each other. So remembering our parallel notation, when they've got an arrow in the line, or we could also be told L is parallel to M, just like that. So when that's the case, these two angles would be congruent because they're alternate interiors. And then another pair of alternate interiors, angle 4 and angle 6, would be congruent to each other. Oops, sorry, those are X. I'm still on interiors. Okay, there we go. So alternate interior angles end up being equal, congruent to each other. And then alternate exterior angles are also congruent to each other, and something interesting happens here. So let's look at an exterior angle, like angle 3. Angle 3 is vertical angles with angle 1. So that tells me that angle 1 and angle 3 are also the same as each other. Let's just start there for a moment. And then angle 2 and 4 would also be the same because they are vertical angles as well. So now we still have our vertical angle relationship. Let's go back and look at alternate exteriors. Angle 3 is alternate exterior with angle 7. And alternate exterior angles are equal. And also you can look at it as well, 5 and 7 are vertical angles as well. So those should be congruent, those should be equal. And that's also the case, alternate exterior angles. And then angle 2 and angle 8 are also alternate exteriors. So we have angle 2 congruent to angle 8. And angle 3 congruent to angle 7. Because of alternate exteriors. Okay. So looking at consecutive interiors now, though. Consecutive interior would be like 4 and 5 or 1 and 6, right? What do we think? Are consecutive interiors going to be equal to each other? Is that possible given this picture? 4 and 5, 2 and 6. What do we think? Or 1 and 6, I mean. No, those aren't going to be equal, right? Because they've got different markings on them. And if you look at them too, just by looks, angle 4 is obtuse. Angle 5 is acute. So no, they're not going to be equal. They're not going to be congruent. But an interesting thing happens. And one way you can think about it is, well, 6 and 5 make a linear pair, right? And linear pairs add to what? Type in the chat. What's a linear pair add up to? Yep, 180. Linear pairs add to 180, right? And angle 6 is the same as angle 4. So if angle 6 and angle 5 add to 180, well, then angle 4 and angle 5 would add to 180. So that's something else that we have convenient that happens. Consecutive interior angles are supplementary. Add to 180. So that tells me that measure of angle 4 plus measure of angle 5 is 180 because those are consecutive interiors. And angle 1 plus angle 6 is 180 because those are also consecutive interiors. Okay. So then the last convenient thing that we have happen is with corresponding angles. Now, corresponding angles, remember, those were those ones that were like the same spot within their group of 4. So like angle 2 is the top left corner of this group of 4, and angle 6 is the top left corner of this group of 4. So angle 2 and 6 were corresponding. And it just so happens that corresponding angles are also equal. Or congruent. So that tells me that angle 2 is congruent to angle 6. It tells me angle 1 is congruent to angle 7. It tells me angle 3 is congruent to angle 5. And it tells me angle 4, since that's the bottom right, is congruent to 8, since that's the bottom right. Okay. So the interesting thing here, once we know about all of these relationships, or 3 of these relationships, we know the angles are equal. One of them we know that they add to 180, they're supplementary. The interesting thing is now, if I have a picture like this where the lines are parallel, if I know any one of these angles, I can find all of the others. And so that's our goal today, is to be able to use that knowledge of our angle relationships to find other angles in the picture. Okay. So we're going to do some examples. And for this example, we'll draw a picture a lot like the one we have above. I did put the angles in a little bit of a different spot, though, number-wise. They don't quite match, so yeah. So sorry about that. Be a little careful with that there. All right, so we might see a picture like this, and we might be told that measure of angle 1 is 120 degrees. Okay. And we might be asked to find all of the other angles that are missing. And if that's the case, then we know, okay, angle 1 is 120. And then we can just kind of start going around labeling our picture with the rest of the angles that we can find based off of knowing that this angle is 120. We can even start with just this pod up here if we want to. So if 1 is 120, what's angle 4 going to be? Yeah, also 120. Since they're vertical angles, right? All right. Well, if angle 1 is 120 and angle 2 forms a linear pair with it, find angle 2, I just have to go 180 minus 120. We get 60, so angle 2 is 60 degrees. And then if angle 2 is 60, well, angle 3 is vertical with that, so 3 would also be 60. So with that one, we can just use the relationships that we knew from back in chapter 1 to get this whole group of angles here based off of angle 1. But now, if we need to know that these lines are parallel. They are. Okay. Now, we need to be able to jump from this group of angles to this group of angles. So to jump from this group to this group, we go, okay, well, 120 is, you can use any of these angles, by the way, to do this jump. And you can use pretty much any of these angle relationships that we had in our notes before. But I know that angle 1 is corresponding with angle 5. These two are corresponding to one another. They're both the top left corner. So that tells me that this is also 120 degrees. In fact, I can just pretty much copy this group of angles and stick it down here. Because 3 corresponds with 7 in this picture. 2 corresponds with 6. And 4 corresponds with 8. We can get all of our angles just based off of that one. So that's one type of question that we might be asked. We might be given one of the angles and asked to find all the others. Okay. So there's one kind of question. Another kind of question we might see is going to look a little bit more like some of the IXL that you had yesterday with the letters and angles and everything. Go ahead and draw that. And we're going to say that that line and that line are parallel. So we'll say line DC is parallel to line EG. And then they might tell us something like measure of angle CBF is 115 degrees. Find measure of angle BFG. Give everyone a moment to catch up drawing the picture. All right. So the first thing I would do is in my picture figure out where angle CBF is. CBF, that's right here, this angle. And we know that that one's 115 degrees. Then I got to figure out where the other angle is that we're looking for, BFG. BFG, that tells me that it's this angle here. So then we have to figure out, okay, what's the angle relationship between CBF and BFG? What kind of angle pair is that? So look back at your notes from above. Are they alternate interior, alternate exterior, consecutive interior, or corresponding? What do we think? Type in the chat. What angle relationship is that we're looking at? All right, we have a couple different guesses here. First of all, looking at this is our transversal. Are they on the same side of the transversal line, or are they on opposite sides? Same side or opposite sides? Same, right? So if they're on the same side of the transversal, then that means they're not going to be alternate. Because alternate is for opposite sides of the transversal. So if they're on the same side, we have two options, consecutive interior or corresponding here. And since they're both interior, these ones are going to be, yeah, consecutive interior. Nice. All right. So these are consecutive interior angles. And looking at our information about consecutive interiors, we know that they are supplementary. They add to 180. So we can look at this and go, okay, if these are consecutive interior, that means they add to 180. So if I go 180 minus 115, that gives me 65. So that means that the measure of angle BFG is 65 degrees. Okay. And there we go. Now we can actually see it. Angle BFG is 65 degrees because they're consecutive interior. If you're just asked for what the angle is going to be, you can kind of eyeball it. You can go, okay, well, if they look, this one is obtuse, right? This one is acute. If one's acute and one's obtuse, they're not going to be equal. They're going to add to 180. If they're both obtuse, they'll be the same. If they're both acute, they'll be the same. If you've got one of each, they add to 180. So that's another way you can kind of figure things out if you're just asked which, what's this angle going to measure. But we also want to make sure we're practicing our angle relationships and everything like that, because that's also something that will continue to come up. So those are kind of two ways to do it, but we should practice our angle relationships. Okay, Let's do some more. All right. There's our next one. Give you a moment to write it down. We are told that line AD is parallel to line FG, and that the measure of angle GEH is 123 degrees. So as you're drawing your picture, find angle GEH and label it as 123 degrees. Find angle GEH and label it as 123 degrees. All right, if that's the one that you labeled, you're on the right track. Then we want to figure out what is the measure of angle ABC. That's this one right here. So first of all, what do we think is their angle relationship? Get some angle relationship practice. Are they alternate, interior, exterior, consecutive, or corresponding? Good. I'm seeing some good responses there. Alternate exterior. Yeah, that one's a little bit easier to pick out even because the only option when they're both exterior is alternate exterior that we've talked about so far. Alternate exterior. All right, so since they're alternate exterior, are they going to be congruent or add to 180? Congruent or supplementary? What do we think? Look back at your notes if you need to. Will these be the same or will they add to 180? Yes, Gavin, they will be congruent. If you look back up at the notes where it says alternate exterior, it says that those angles are equal, they are congruent. So since they're congruent, measure of angle ABC is the same as measure of angle GEH, so it's also 123 degrees. So these ones are the same. Let's see. What if I then asked you what is the measure of angle DBE? DBE is right here. What do we think? If you had to think about it and decide what is the measure of angle DBE. Type in the chat, what do you think that measure is going to be? Nice, Christy. Yes, it's going to be 123 degrees because there's a couple different ways you could think about this one. You could think, well, I already found this one, and this one over here is a vertical angle with it. So that would also be 123. Or you could think, well, I have this one here, GEH, that we were given to start with, and this one is corresponding with EBD. Since it's the bottom right-hand corner with its group, bottom right-hand corner with its group. So that means measure of angle DBE is 123 degrees. All right. Last one for this picture. What if we said find measure of angle GEB? GEB. What do we think for measure of angle GEB? Anyone think they got it? Go ahead and type in the chat if you think you've got it. All right, nice, Owen. Yes, 57 degrees. And we get there, a couple different ways are kind of possible ways to get that this is 57 degrees here. GEB, that's this angle. One way is to think that this is a linear pair, right? That means they're going to add to 180. Another way is to think that this angle that we just found is consecutive interior with this new angle. So that would also tell me that they add to 180. So those are some different ways that you could kind of think about that particular one. Okay. The last one that we're going to do as a group writing down in the notes is going to be a little bit more complicated looking of a picture. But it's going to be an interesting one. And this isn't one that you'll necessarily see on your assignment for today, but it is a good one to be aware of because you might see it on your assignment tomorrow. We have two lines, P and Q. And L and M. And the interesting thing in this picture is that L and M are parallel, and P and Q are also parallel. So this makes a whole bunch of angles. So we'll start up here. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 angles. Okay. And with this one, if I know one of the angles, we can find all the other angles. Okay. So we will say that measure of angle 2 is 77 degrees. That's something that's going to be given to us in the problem. So we're going to go over to angle 2, and we're going to label it as 77 degrees. Okay. So now what I might do here is go find all the other angles that are 77. Or you could start by doing this entire pod and figuring out what all these angles are and then copying it to all of the others. There's a couple different options that you've got there. So let's just start with, if angle 2 is 77, what's angle 4 going to be, since it's vertical angles with angle 2? Also 77, right? Yeah. That one we know is 77. What's another angle that's going to be 77 in this picture? What do we think? There's 6 more angles in this picture that are also 77. What's one more of them? Yeah, Samia's got it. Angle 6. That's another one. 8, Marissa, nice. Christy, got it too. 77. What's another one? 10. Yeah, Gavin. Try to, yep, both got 10. 14, those are both 77 as well. David's got one, 12. And let's see, the last one. Yep, 16. Those are all my 77-degree angles in the picture. So we could get there by using corresponding angles to help us jump around. We can also use vertical angles once we've jumped from one group to another, like once we went from 2 and 6 being corresponding. Or you could use the fact that 4 and 6 are alternate interiors. Either way. Then you can go, okay, then vertical. And then you can go alternate exterior if you want to, or corresponding. There's all kinds of those angle relationships that work out. All right. All the other angles will be the same thing as each other as well. That's another interesting thing about this picture. So what are those angles all going to be? Anyone have an idea? Yeah, Kaylee. 103. Because if I go 180 minus 77, that gives me 103 degrees. So all the other angles in this picture are 103 degrees. All right. So that's one of the more complicated pictures that we'll see, but it works the same way as the simpler pictures do. You have all these angle relationships that still exist because the lines are parallel to each other. So at the end of the day, they're going to either be equal angles or they're going to add to 180 for their measures. Okay. So let's see. Let's go. Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs to the side. You can type in the chat if you want to. How are we feeling about finding missing angle measures so far? Thumbs up if you feel like, yeah, I've got this. Thumbs down if you really are confused, and thumbs to the side if you're like, okay, I just need some more practice with it. All right, thanks, Nolan, for the visual one. All right. All right, so let's take a look at our assignment for today. And we'll kind of go from there. If you want to get some extra practice with me, you can stick around. If you want to just get to work, you can also just go and do that. I'm going to post the assignment. in Google Classroom. Yeah. Okay, so today's assignment is one IXL section. So if you're still behind on the IXL sections a little bit from yesterday, we're only assigning one new one today, and tomorrow we won't be in IXL. So this is our last IXL of the week. So here it is, it's D4 to a SMART score of 80. So D4 looks a lot like D3 did yesterday, except they're telling you what one of the angles is, and you have to find one of the other ones that they specify. So this is a lot like the examples that we did in class today. Okay, so I will do a couple of these here with you guys. If you feel like you've got it though and want to just go get to work, then you are free to do so. Just make sure you come back at 10:55 because we have an exit ticket and HSBP. So if you want to see a couple of examples, stick around. If you would like to just go get to work, you are free to go get to work. Okay. So for this first one here, they tell us we've got parallel lines and that MLI is 66 degrees. So MLI, that's this one right here. And they want to know what is HIL, this angle right here. We have these two angles. And their relationship is alternate interior. And we know that alternate interior angles are equal to each other. So my answer here would be 66. You can also kind of tell because both of these angles are acute. And we know that they're either going to be the same or they're going to add to 180. Those are our two options. So there's our answer. Okay. Here's another one. It says GHE, so this angle right here by the letter H, is 117 degrees. What is the measure of angle IHJ? That's this one right here. And their relationship is just that they're vertical angles. And we know vertical angles are equal. That would be another one that's 117. Those are the same. Okay. We'll do one more. LKI, that's this one right here, is 137 degrees. What is the measure of JKN? This one right here. That's another set of vertical angles here. So those would be the same. They would be both 137. Okay. That's pretty much how this IXL section goes. So feel free to jump back in if you have questions, or if you want to see, another one done, or if you want to work through one of the ones from your particular IXL. Otherwise, yeah, go ahead and get to work.